My name is Ethan West, and I never thought I would find love in my college dorm room, much less with another man growing up in a small town in Minnesota. I had always followed the expected path, dated girls in high school, played football, and planned to study business at university, but everything changed when I arrived at Boston University for my freshman year. The international student housing mix-up that placed me with Lucas Bennett, an exchange student from London, seemed like an administrative error at first. I remembered standing in the doorway of room 304, taking in the sight of the tall blonde guy who was already unpacking his things. "Oh, you must be Ethan," he said with a crisp British accent, extending his hand. "I'm Lucas. Seems we'll be roommates this year." There was something immediately disarming about his smile and the casual way he carried himself. He wore a simple white t-shirt and dark jeans, his sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms marked with subtle tattoos, quotes in what looked like Latin. "Nice to meet you," I managed, wheeling my suitcase inside. "I thought I was supposed to be with someone named Chris." "Ah yes, poor Chris came down with mono and had to defer for a semester. They told me this morning I'd be with you instead." He helped me with one of my boxes. "Hope you don't mind having a Brit for a roommate." I didn't mind at all, though I was slightly thrown by how effortlessly cool he seemed while I was still wearing my high school football t-shirt and cargo shorts. He looked like he had stepped out of a European fashion magazine. The first few weeks were an adjustment period. Jack was studying literature and philosophy while I was taking business courses. Our schedules rarely aligned, but when they did, I found myself increasingly drawn into conversations with him. He had a way of making even mundane topics fascinating, often launching into passionate discussions about books I'd never read or films I'd never seen. "You've never watched Dead Poet Society?" he asked one evening, looking genuinely shocked. "That's it, we're watching it right now. Your American education has been severely lacking." We ended up sitting on his bed, sharing his laptop screen. I was acutely aware of how close we were sitting, our shoulders touching. Occasionally the movie was actually fantastic, but I found myself more distracted by Lucas's reactions, the way he mouthed certain lines he knew by heart, how his eyes lit up during his favorite scenes. So he asked when it ended, turning to face me. Our faces were closer than I expected, and I felt a strange flutter in my stomach. "It was really good," I said, suddenly aware that I hadn't moved away. "Thanks for sharing it." He smiled, and for a moment some passed between us, a current of energy I couldn't explain. Then his phone buzzed, breaking the moment. "Ah, that's Sarah," he said, checking his messages. "We're meeting for coffee to discuss our Victorian literature project." I felt an unexpected twinge of something jealousy that was ridiculous. I had no reason to be jealous of Jack spending time with a classmate, yet I found myself wondering about Sarah for the rest of the evening. As September turned to October, I noticed small changes in my behavior. I started spending more time in our room, supposedly studying, but really hopping to catch Jack between classes. I paid more attention to what I wore, found myself wanting to impress him with my own insights into the books he loved. One rainy Sunday, we were both stuck inside, and Jack suggested teaching me how to play chess. "It's a crime that you've made it to university without learning," he teased, setting up his beautiful wooden chest set. He sat cross-legged on his bed, and I sat opposite him, trying to focus on the rules he was explaining rather than the way his fingers moved gracefully over the pieces. "The knight moves in an L shape," he demonstrated, then reached over to guide my hand to the correct position. His touch sent electricity through my arm, and I knocked over several pieces by accident. "Sorry," I mumbled, helping him reset them. "No worries," he laughed. "I was rubbish when I first started too. Here, let me show you." Again, our chess lessons became a regular Sunday ritual, and with each session I found myself more attuned to Lucas's presence, the way he ran his hand through his hair when concentrating, how his accent grew stronger when he was excited about a particularly good move, the slight dimple that appeared when he smiled one evening as we were playing our usual game. Thunderstorm hit Boston. The lights flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. "Well, that's unfortunate. Timing Jack chuckled in the darkness. I heard him moving around and suddenly phone's flashlight illuminated his face. I think I have some candles from that power outage last month. He rummaged through his drawer and produced several vanilla-scented candles, placing them around the room. The soft warm light created an intimate atmosphere that made my heart race slightly. Shall we continue? He asked, settling back on the bed. Or are you just using this as an excuse to avoid inevitable defeat? I'm getting better, I protested, moving my bishop. You said so yourself that I did. He smiled, capturing my knight with a swift move. Though you're still delightfully predictable sometimes. The way he said delightfully made my stomach flip. We continued playing in comfortable silence, broken only by the sound of rain against the windows and occasional rumbles of thunder. Check, he said softly, leaning forward to move his queen in the candle light. His features seemed softer, more vulnerable somehow. A drop of water from his earlier shower fell from his hair onto his collarbone, and I found myself tracking its path with my eyes. Nathan, his voice snapped me back to reality. It's your move, right? Sorry, I mumbled, trying to focus on the board, but all I could think about was how the candle light caught the gold flecks in his green eyes. Are you all right? He asked, genuine concern in his voice. You seem distracted. Tonight I'm fine, I said quickly, just thinking about I moved my king randomly, not even caring about the game anymore. It's nothing. He captured my king with his queen, ending the game. Checkmate, he said softly, but didn't move to reset the board. Instead, he kept looking at me with those intense eyes. You know, you can talk to me about anything, right? Maybe it was the storm, or the intimate lighting, or just weeks of suppressed feelings finally bubbling to the surface, but I found myself speaking. I've been feeling different lately, I said carefully, about certain things. Certain people. Jack set aside the chest piece he was holding. Different how? I don't know how to explain it. I ran my hands through my hair in frustration. It's like everything I thought I knew about myself is suddenly unclear. He was quiet for a moment, then moved to sit beside me. I felt the same way once, he said quietly. When I first realized I was attracted to men, my heart stopped. He had never explicitly mentioned his sexuality before, though I'd had my suspicions. I swallowed hard. How did you know for sure? I think deep down I always knew, he said thoughtfully, but I first accepted it when I fell for my best friend at boarding school. It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. What happened? Nothing. He was straight, but accepting those feelings about him helped me accept myself. He turned to look at me. Ethan, are you trying to tell me something? The candle light flickered across his face, creating shadows that danced across his cheekbones. Without thinking, I reached out and touched his jaw, feeling the slight stubble under my fingers. I whispered, I think I'm falling for you. The moment the words left my mouth, panic seized me. What had I done? I just potentially ruined our friendship, our living situation, everything. But then Lucas covered my hand with his own, keeping it against his face. I know, he said softly. I've seen the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. Time seemed to stand still in that candlelit moment. Lucas's hand was warm over mine, and I could feel his pulse quickening under my fingers. I've been trying to take things slow, he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to pressure you or confuse you while you were figuring things out. How long have you known? I asked, still not moving my hand from his face. Since that night we watched Dead Poet Society. The way you looked at me afterward. He smiled softly. I've seen that look before in my own mirror when I was first coming to terms with who I am. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room for a brief moment. In that flash I saw such tenderness in his eyes that it took my breath away. I'm scared, I admitted. I've never felt this way about anyone, let alone a man. He finished gently. When I nodded, he reached up and brushed a strand of hair from my forehead. It's okay to be scared, but you don't have to figure everything out tonight. What if I want to? The words came out before I could stop them. Lucas's eyes dropped to my lips, then back to my eyes. Are you sure? Instead of answering, I leaned forward and kissed him. It was clumsy at first. I had no experience kissing another man, but Jack was patient, guiding me with gentle pressure. His lips were softer than I expected, and he tasted faintly of the mint tea he'd Been drinking earlier when we finally broke apart. I was trembling slightly. Jack rested his forehead against mine. His breathing uneven. Okay, he asked. Softly I nodded, unable to form words. Everything felt different. The air around us seemed charged with electricity, and every point of contact between our bodies tingled with awareness. We should probably talk about this, Jack said, though he made no move to pull away. Can we just stay like this for a minute? I asked, not ready to break the spell of the moment. He smiled and shifted to lean against the wall, pulling me with him. We sat there in comfortable silence, my head on his shoulder, his fingers tracing patterns on my arm. The storm continued outside, but in our candle-lit room, everything felt peaceful. What happens now? I finally asked. Whatever you want, he replied. We can take this as slow as you need. No pressure, no expectations. And what do you want? He was quiet for a moment. I want to be with you, Ethan, but I want you to be completely comfortable with who you are first. This isn't just about us, it's about your journey of self-discovery. The power chose that moment to come back on, flooding the room with harsh fluorescent light. We both blinked at the sudden brightness, and I felt a moment of panic in the full light. Everything felt more real, more serious. Jack must have sensed my anxiety, because he squeezed my hand reassuringly. Nothing has to change. If you're not ready, he said, we can pretend this never happened. No, I said firmly, surprising myself with my conviction. I don't want to pretend, I just need time to process everything. Of course, he started to move away, but I held on to his hand. Can we leave the lights off? I asked. Just for a little while longer. He smiled and reached over to flip the switch, plunging us back into the gentle candle light. This time when he kissed me, I was ready for it. It felt like coming home to a place I never knew I was looking for. The next few days were a delicate dance of stolen glances and careful touches. During the day we maintained our normal roommate routine, but our evenings were filled with long conversations about everything and nothing. Jack told me about his first boyfriend in London, about coming out to his parents, who were surprisingly supportive, about the challenges and joys of living authentically. As October progressed, our relationship evolved in small, intimate ways. Jack started teaching me more than just chess. He introduced me to classic literature, foreign films, and the music he loved. I found myself developing a particular fondness for the Smiths, especially when Jack would sing along softly while studying. One evening, as we were lying on his bed listening to "There Is a Light That Never Goes Out," he asked me about my family, their traditional, I said carefully, small town Minnesota church, every Sunday, Republican voters. They expect me to take over Dad's insurance business after graduation. Jack propped himself up on an elbow, looking at me. Seriously, are you going to tell them? I don't know, I admitted. I can barely wrap my head around it myself. Sometimes. He reached over and intertwined our fingers. There's no rush. Coming out is a personal journey, and everyone's timeline is different. However, our careful bubble of privacy was challenged sooner than expected. My high school friend Mike came to visit one weekend in early November. We were all hanging out in our room, and I was hyper aware of maintaining a normal distance from Jack. So you guys must be pretty tight by now, Mike commented, sprawled in my desk chair. Yeah, we get along well, I said, perhaps too casually. Jack was sitting on his bed, pretending to read, but I could tell he was listening. Must be weird having a gay roommate, though, Mike continued, and my blood ran cold. I mean, no offense, dude, he added to Jack. Jack looked up from his book, his expression carefully neutral. None taken. How did you? I started. Sarah from your literature class mentioned it. Mike shrugged, said you guys were pretty obvious about it. My heart was pounding. What do you mean that he's gay? Mike clarified, oblivious to my panic. Must be awkward sometimes. Right before I could respond, Jack stood up. Actually, I should head to the library, got a paper due Monday. He gathered his things, giving me a subtle understanding look before leaving. As soon as the door closed, Mike laughed. Man, that was awkward. You should request a room change if it makes you uncomfortable. It doesn't make me uncomfortable, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. Jack, is he's important to me? Mike's expression changed as understanding dawned. Wait, are you and him? Yes, I said quietly. We're together. The silence that followed felt endless. Mike stared at me, then at the door where Jack had left then back at me but. You're not I mean you dated Katie Johnson for. Like a year in high school I. No this is confusing I said it was. Confusing for me too but I've never felt. More myself than I do with him Mike. Stood up abruptly I should go I need to. Process this after he left I sat there. Feeling numb Jack returned an hour. Later finding me in the same position. I'm sorry he said softly sitting beside. Me I shouldn't have left you alone too. Deal with that no it's okay I needed to. Do it myself I leaned into him drawing. Comfort from his presence I just didn't. Expect it to happen like this he wrapped. An arm around me are you okay I think so. It's actually kind of a relief in a way. Mike will probably tell everyone back home so I won't have to have that conversation 100 times and how do you feel about that I thought for a moment. Scared but also free the aftermath of Mike's visit unfolded gradually within a week my phone was flooded with messages. From high school friends and acquaintances some were supportive. Others confused and a few were downright hostile my sister Emma called telling me she'd heard rumors and wanted the truth. From me directly is it true she asked. Without preamble are you dating your roommate taking a deep breath I looked at Jack who was sitting across the room. Pretending not to listen he gave me an encouraging smile yes I said his name is Jack and he's amazing there was a pause then are you happier than I've ever been then that's all that matters she said simply but Ethan mom and dad are going to find out soon you should tell them yourself before someone else does she was right of course that night Jack held me as I drafted and redrafted emails to my parents finally settling on a simple honest message. The response came 2 days later my father's tour we need to discuss this and my mother's longer more emotional plea to reconsider this phase they want me to come home this weekend I told Jack my stomach in knots to talk things through. Jack set aside his book and pulled me into his arms do you want me to come with you the offer touched me deeply but I shook my head I need to do this alone. But will you be here when I get back? Always he promised kissing my forehead. The weekend at home was as difficult as I had expected my father oscillated between angry lectures about family reputation and long silences my mother cried and showed me articles about conversion therapy through it all I found strength in thinking about Lucas. His quiet confidence his unwavering support I'm not changing who I am I finally told them Sunday morning I love you both but I also love Jack that's not going to change I left before they could respond taking an early bus back to Boston. Jack was waiting in our room. And the moment I saw him all the tension from the weekend melted away he opened his arms and I fell into them finally. Letting myself cry I've got you he whispered running his fingers through my hair I've got you that night our relationship shifted into something deeper for the first time we made love. Slow tender and full of whispered reassurances Jack was patient gooeyed guiding me through my nervousness with gentle touches and soft words afterward. Lying in his arms I felt completely at peace thank you I murmured against his chest for helping me find myself. The weeks that followed were both challenging and beautiful. My parents stopped taking my calls but Emma remained supportive even asking to meet Jack over Thanksgiving break. Meanwhile, our relationship flourished. We started going on proper dates dinner at tiny Italian restaurants walks along the Charles River midnight movies at the independent cinema where Jack worked part-time. Jack introduced me to his friends from the literature department who welcomed me warmly into their circle. For the first time I experienced what it felt like to be part of a community where I could be completely myself. We went to LGBTQ+ student group meetings together where I met other people going through similar journey. Sarah, the girl from Lucas's Victorian literature class, became one of our closest friends. She was the one who convinced us to go to our first Pride event, a small gathering on campus. You two are disgustingly cute together, she declared, watching us share a rainbow-colored snow cone, but I take full credit for this relationship. If I hadn't switched seats with Ethan in the dining hall that one time, you might never have started talking. As winter settled over Boston, our relationship continued to deepen. Jack and I developed our own little routines and traditions. Every Friday Night we try a different international cuisine, his attempt to broaden my painfully American palate as he teasingly called it. Sunday mornings were spent in bed reading books he recommended while sharing coffee and croissants from the French bakery down the street. December brought finals and the looming question of winter break. My parents had made it clear I wasn't welcome home unless I came to my senses, and the thought of being away from Lucas for 3 weeks made my heart ache. Come to London with me, Jack suggested one night, as we lay tangled together, snow falling softly outside our window. My parents would love to meet you. The offer terrified and excited me in equal measure. Are you sure? Isn't it too soon? He propped himself up on one elbow, looking at me with those intense green eyes. Ethan, I'm in love with you. I want you to see where I came from. Meet the people who shaped me, but only if you're ready. It was the first time either of us had said I love you. My heart felt like it might burst. I love you too, I whispered, pulling him down for a kiss. And yes, I'll come to London. London in winter was magical. Lucas's parents lived in a beautiful townhouse in Notting Hill, and they welcomed me with warm hugs and endless cups of tea. His mother, Caroline, was an art curator with kind eyes and Lucas's same infectious laugh. His father, James, was a literature professor who immediately engaged me in discussions about American authors. We've heard so much about you, Caroline said over dinner. Our first night, Lucas's calls home have been nothing but Ethan this and Nathan that since September. Jack blushed, something I rarely saw. Mom, please, it's true though, darling, she continued, winking at me. We haven't seen him this happy in ages. Over the next 3 weeks, Jack showed me his London, the hidden bookshops, the cozy pubs, the quiet corners of Hyde Park where he used to read as a teenager. We spent Christmas Eve with his extended family, who treated me like I'd always been part of their world. On New Year's Eve, we stood on the banks of the Thames watching fireworks illuminate the London Eye. Jack wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. Thank you for coming here with me, he murmured. Thank you for inviting me, I replied, leaning back against him. Your family is amazing. They're your family too now, he said simply, and I had to blink back tears. When we returned to Boston for spring semester, everything felt different, more settled, more certain. We started talking about getting an apartment together for sophomore year. Our room had become too small for our growing collection of books, chess sets, and the art prints Jack kept bringing home from vintage markets. One particularly memorable evening in February, we were studying for midterms when Jack suddenly looked up from his book. What would you think about spending the summer here instead of going home? He asked. We could both get jobs, maybe start looking for that apartment. You'd stay here instead of going back to London. He smiled, taking my hand. Home isn't a place anymore, Nathan. It's wherever you are. That night, as we lay in bed planning our future, I thought about how much had changed in just 6 months. I'd arrived at Boston University, expecting to study business, make some friends, and follow the path my parents had laid out for me. Instead, I'd found love, acceptance, and the courage to be myself. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Mom asked about you today. Baby steps, but progress, miss. You big bro. Give Jack a hug from me. Spring semester flew by in a blur of classes, date nights, and apartment hunting. Jack and I found a small but charming one-bedroom in Cambridge, close enough to campus but far enough to feel like we were building our own life together. The landlady, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chen, took an immediate liking to us. You remind me of my grandson and his partner, she said warmly. As we signed the lease, they started just like you two, young and love figuring things out together as May approached, bringing with it final exams and the end of our freshman year. I received an unexpected email from my mother. She wanted to meet for coffee during movie out week. Jack encouraged me to go. I'll handle packing up our room, he offered. This could be important. I met my mother at a cafe near campus. She looked smaller, somehow more uncertain than I'd ever seen her. You look good, she said after an awkward hug. Happy? I am happy, Mom, she fiddled with her coffee cup. Emma shows me your Instagram sometimes, the pictures of you and Jack. She said his name carefully, like she was testing how it felt on her tongue. You do look happy together. We are, I said softly. He's incredible, Mom. I wish you could know him. She was quiet for a long moment. Maybe. Maybe someday I'm trying. Ethan, your father is too in his way. We just need time. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. When I told Jack about the conversation later, he held me close as I cried tears of relief and hope. The day we moved into our new apartment was chaotic but joyful. Sarah and some friends from the LGBTQ plus group helped us carry boxes and furniture. By evening, we were surrounded by half unpacked boxes, eating pizza on our second hand couch, our first piece of furniture. Together, welcome home, Jack said, raising his beer bottle in a toast. That summer was filled with new experiences and milestones. We both found jobs, Jack at a local bookstore and me at a cafe. We learned to navigate living together properly. Who was better at cooking? Lucas. Who was more organized? Me. How to share a bathroom in the morning, a carefully choreographed dance. We decorated our apartment with a mix of our styles. Lucas's vintage movie posters alongside my minimalist art prints. The chessboard found a permanent home on our coffee table. Every evening we'd play at least one game, keeping score in a little notebook. Jack still won most of the time, but I was getting better. One night in July, as we sat on our tiny balcony watching the sunset over the Cambridge skyline, Jack turned to me with a serious expression. I've been thinking, he said, playing with my promise ring. After graduation, when I start teaching and you begin your graduate studies, maybe we should look for a house instead of another apartment. My heart skipped. A house, something small but ours, with room for a proper library and maybe room to grow. The implication hung in the air. We talked about kids before, hypothetically, but this felt more real. I'd like that, I said softly. All of it. He smiled, that same smile that had captivated me in the dining hall 3 years ago. Yeah, but first I reached into my pocket, pulling out the small box I'd been carrying for weeks. I have something to ask you. Lucas's eyes widened as I opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band. You gave me a promise ring last year, I said, my voice shaking slightly. Now I want to give you a different kind of promise. Jack James Harrison, will you marry me? Lucas's eyes filled with tears as he pulled me close. Yes, he whispered against my lips. Of course it's yes. We decided to have a small autumn wedding after graduation. The ceremony was held in the Boston Public Garden, where we'd spent countless afternoons studying and dreaming together. The fall leaves provided a perfect backdrop of red and gold. My father walked me down the aisle, something I never thought I'd see happen. Jack waited under an arch of flowers, looking handsome in his tailored navy suit. When our eyes met, everything else faded away. I remember the first time I saw you in that dining hall, Jack said during his vows, his voice thick with emotion. You looked lost, but there was something in your eyes that drew me in. Watching you grow into yourself, seeing you become this confident, amazing man. It's been the privilege of my life, and I can't wait to keep growing with you. My vows were simpler. You didn't just love me, you helped me learn to love myself. Every day with you feels like coming home. Emma and Sarah were our best people, and Mrs. Chen sat in the front row next to our parents, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. The reception was held at our favorite Italian restaurant, where both families danced and celebrated together. Late into the night, we moved into our small house that winter, charming colonial with the library Jack had dreamed of and a sunny room we both knew would someday be a nursery. Our story wasn't perfect, but it was ours, filled with love, growth, and the kind of happiness I never knew was possible. That first day in the dining hall, as we lay in bed, our first night in our new home, Jack traced the wedding band on my finger. Happy, he asked. I thought about the scared, confused freshman I'd been and the man I'd become, with Jack by my side, more than I ever imagined possible. And that's where this chapter of our story ends, but really it was just the beginning.